And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Julie McFadden, also known as Hospice Nurse Julie. She has been providing care for more than 15 years, and she's passionate about normalizing death and dying and has over 3 million followers on social media. Julie, it's great to see you again. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Likewise. Now, I want to ask you this, Julie. I have had 2 hospice guests, and both of them have either seen aliens at the bedside or alien-like beings. Have you seen that?
Really?
Yes.
Alien-like beings. I have not. So the only thing I've seen, and this is something that I just recently shared because I was nervous about it at first, but I think I've seen an angel, but I don't think I've seen an alien angel. I think it felt, I don't know what angels are, but it didn't feel like an alien. It just felt like an angel.
Well, what happened?
Present. Well, so for many years, I told my miracle story. So that's what I call it, my miracle story, where I saw a woman, I was admitting her onto hospice. She was younger. She had like kids in their early 20s, and I think she was in her 50s. And when I arrived to the house, she was coming from the hospital and she was actively dying, which means very end stages of life. I thought she would die that night. She was fully unconscious, changes in breathing. She was cyanotic, which means like blue-ish. You know, it looked like she was very, very close to death. And for years, I talked about the miracle story because that night I tried to stick around and like wait until she died because her kids were young and they didn't really know what was going on. And I just thought it'd be easier for everybody. But she ended up not dying. And I went home, and the next morning she had woken up and was eating pancakes, and I called, and she was like awake and laughing. I could hear her in the kitchen. And I was thinking like, what the hell? How is this lady alive? And not only alive, but like awake and alert and eating, like truly a miracle. She did end up dying on hospice, but she lived 3 months. So for years, I always talked about my miracle story, how this lady was definitely shouldn't have been able to come back that much to life because she clearly wasn't oxygenating, like her brain should have been dead, a bunch of things. But I never told the part about the angel, which I think I saw that night. So before I left that house, I was sitting in front of her bed and kind of just preparing, making sure she looked nice. And I don't know if I wouldn't say I prayed because that wasn't like part of my thing I would normally do at someone's house. But her kids were in the other room talking to their family to get everyone to come over because of what was going on. And I sort of like sat in that room, and I remember thinking like, you know, please be an easy night for the children and for you, and kind of like wished her a good journey. And when I was doing that, there was a flash of an image in my head of like a being, a big, huge being behind her bed, as big as a car, like if a car was like sitting up, right? It was like a big, huge square being that was kind of like over her bed. And the feeling I got was like, this is mine, meaning she's mine. And it was not super loving or soft. It was more like powerful, like a powerful being that's got this person. And and this all happened in a flash, by the way, but the feeling was like they knew I was there, but they didn't care. And like they were in charge of this person, and that's it. And it happened within a flash. And because I don't even know how I feel or like what I believe in, I didn't think much of it. And really, when that kind of stuff happens to me, because weird things do happen to me, a lot of times I poo-poo them out of the way and I kind of like push them out of my mind. Oh, I made that up. That didn't really happen. Anyway, so that's what I did. And then I left. But then the next morning, when this lady literally miraculously was alive and well for 3 more months, I started being like, wow, I think I really did see like her guardian angel that night. And that's what angels look like. That's what the feeling was. And I never told anybody that for years. And for years on TikTok with my videos, I would tell the miracle story, but I wouldn't tell the angel story. And then finally I decided, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to tell people what I saw.
It was a great idea. Again, you just saw a flash of light.
It was more like a flash in my head. It was like a sudden image in my head um, of a being behind her bed. And it felt like, it's all in hindsight. When it was happening, it was like, I don't know what's going, I didn't know what was going on, but like thinking back, it was like a flash. And in my mind, though, in my mind, of this image of like, and it was surprising because it felt like I almost instinctively knew it was an angel, but it wouldn't be what you'd think an angel would look like. It was like huge and powerful and not really warm and fuzzy, just like a powerful being.
Well, you've been doing hospice work, as I said in the beginning, for 15 years or more. Do you fear death yourself?
I get that asked a lot. So in general, my answer is no. And I want to make sure people understand that like I'm human. So like if I were to get diagnosed with something terminal tomorrow, I would have all the human emotions, sadness, anger, fear. Like I think I would vacillate in between negative and positive emotions. But in general, I would say no. I don't want to die, but I don't have tons of fear around it. And some of that is just through my life and how I grew up and things that have happened in my life to make me not fear death, just not even related to work. But a lot of it is related to work, being a nurse for so long, and seeing how some of it's like scientific, seeing how the body is truly built to die, and how it takes care of us at the end of life, whether we want it to or not. Like the body has built-in mechanisms to help us die. That's really comforting to me. And then also the other side of it is the crazy things I've seen and witnessed and the feelings I get. And it really makes me feel like when I think dying feels so scary because it feels unknown. But to me, I feel like I'm definitely going to a place that feels more like home than here ever has. So that doesn't feel as scary when I think of it like that.
What experiences have you had that confirms that for you, that you are going somewhere?
There's so many that it'd be too long to answer that question. But generally, I've always been a seeker in my life. So even when I was a little girl, I was asking my mom like existential questions about like life and death and where are we going, and I've had moments where it feels like, whether it's through meditation or prayer or even just through desperations, like when I've been really, really down and out and like on my knees, kind of like what's going on, I feel like I've had moments of clarity where it feels like time stands still and like the veil of despair or something is lifted and I can kind of see things for what it really is. And and the feeling I get is that like, this is temporary. There's something greater for you and everybody else. We're all one. And that feeling that I've gotten many times for many different reasons is how I think it's going to feel and be when you die. So one, that's happened to me over and over again in my life. And then two, when I go to work and then I see people take their last breath, which I've seen many people take their last breath, that same feeling happens. That same feeling happens. I also get that same feeling when I see a baby being born. So I feel like it's all connected, and because of that, I think it's really helped me solidify that I think I'm right. Now, other people don't have to think I'm right. I know I don't ever want to push my beliefs on other people because I still realize it's a belief system. But that's where I've gotten it from, different. And then, of course, which we've talked about before, I've had things at work like that shared death experience story where I feel like someone kind of showed me what it was like to die. And again, in this patient showing me what it was like to die, I got that same feeling of being one with everything and a feeling of home and comfort and peace and joy and all the things.
As I said in the beginning, you have over 3 million followers on social media and you put out quite a bit of content. What would you say has been your most controversial video that you've made?
Ooh. I have a couple. The ones that are, I'll give two examples. So I give two different types. One is I started doing real life actively dying videos where, because I started Googling, trying to find images online to show people what people look like when they're actively dying to help decrease fear and increase knowledge around like what's normal, what's not normal.
So you're actually showing patients, real
Yeah,
patients?
they're not my patients. Because so when I
Oh,
Googled it, there weren't any images. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Like our world literally doesn't want to show anyone dying. Like no one can see this, which is insane because we all die.
right.
So it doesn't have to be, the thing is like people think it's graphic, but the only reason why they think it's graphic is because we never show it. It's more natural than it's so natural. Childbirth can look very graphic too. We also never show that. That's insane, I think. But anyway, so I started asking my followers, hey, if you guys have images of and you want to share them of your loved one dying, please share them with me. I'll make it legal. I got a whole form and made it legit and have them sign things for release. And so I started showing real life actively dying videos of my followers who've given me permission. Like not people who are there. It's usually their dad or their grandma or something, right? And I blur out their faces and we do all the things to make it to keep their privacy. And those are the videos that go most viral, but I also get the most hate. And even the internet usually shuts them down. So TikTok always will censor them. The other platforms, not so much, but it's been like I get the most positive and the most hated responses, right? So it's like when anything goes viral, you always get like the gamut of things. I think they're the most helpful in this situation to prepare. And I get hundreds of messages from people saying how those videos really help prepare them for when their loved one was going through this. And I think when people are prepared, the reason why I do it is when you're prepared and you know what it looks like, you can actually be in the moment with your loved one and have like a sacred moment versus like this scared panic moment of like, they're going to die. What's going to happen? You know, it's so hard if you don't know what to expect. So those ones are my most controversial. And I actually even get like warnings and TikTok has like given me warnings saying like, you're violating things. You can't keep doing this. And I really try to push back on that because I think that's wrong. You know, this is not gruesome. I'm not showing someone, I mean, not to go there, but I'm not showing someone being murdered. You know, this is someone dying a natural death. It's not graphic. It's a very normal, peaceful death that I'm showing. But so few people know what a normal, peaceful death is that they think it's graphic. So anyway, that's one of them, the most one. The second most one that's still pretty controversial is talking about being dehydrated at the end of life and how that really helps people. People really don't like to hear that, even though it's scientifically correct, because they think we're trying to, they think it causes suffering, but really it doesn't. It helps someone at the end of life.
Why do you want them to be dehydrated?
Yeah, because so at the end of life, our bodies, like I said, our bodies are built to die. And when our bodies know what's happening, and when I say dehydrated, I mean, it's a very specific patient population. So they are very end of life and they are like in the actively dying phase. So when that is happening, the body has already shut down the hunger and thirst mechanism. So that's already shut down. They're not hungry, they're not thirsty. They probably have been like that for a long time, actually. And their sleep mechanism is kicked on. So their calcium levels are really up and they just want to sleep all the time. When this is happening, the body will naturally try to dehydrate because when it does, it goes into ketosis and releases endorphins, which helps dull pain and make you sleepy. But what happens is if you try to put in an IV, like intravenous, and give hydration that way, the body doesn't know what to do because the body's like, hey, we have all these things kicked in to help this person die. And now you're pushing fluid through and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, which is stay intravascular and hydrate the person. It won't do that. It'll actually seep out of those vessels, causing swelling or edema in the lower extremities. And then eventually the heart can't really pump all the fluid. So then the fluid starts backing up into the lungs and causing respiratory distress. So even if you wanted to hydrate, let's just say someone says, I don't believe you, because people do all the time. I don't believe you. Put an IV and give my loved one fluids. Then they eventually stop on their own. They'll say, never mind, stop. Because they see the body will not do it. The body, it's not like It's not like if you or I were dehydrated, our body would like suck up that fluid and love it and feel better. It doesn't do that. It actually makes it worse and causes respiratory distress. But even other healthcare workers don't know that. When I was an ICU nurse, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So,
well, I think it's fascinating that the body has its own mechanism for dying.
exactly. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
I did not know that I was an ICU. So I've been a nurse for 16 years. The first like 7 or 8 of those, I was an ICU nurse, which means like we were constantly trying to do things to keep people alive. And the first year of hospice nursing was such a huge learning curve because I did not know the things I learned. And the more I saw it naturally happening, I was so amazed. And I hate using this word because it sounds so silly, but it's like the only thing I can think of. Like the body felt magical. It was like, wow, we really are built by something intelligent that like has helped us. And the body will take care of you at the end of life. So even if you don't believe in something, like to me, even if you don't believe in something greater or higher, or you don't believe in an afterlife, I still feel like you can hold comfort in knowing that our bodies are intelligent and they like know how to die.
I was looking through your content and you have a video about why President Carter had his mouth open. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah. So at the end of life, it takes, well, first off, in life, it takes a lot of muscles to shut your mouth. Shut your mouth, close your eyes, blink your eyes, swallow. A lot of things are happening unconsciously for all of those things to happen. And when you start getting towards the end of life, all of those things weaken and also relax. So many people at the end of life will have their mouths hanging open because they're relaxed and because the muscles are kind of letting go. So I think there was an image of President Carter where his mouth was kind of hanging open, and I had a feeling that was probably why. Now, he in general, in that one video, I have a feeling they probably just caught him at a time where he was just relaxing, right? He probably still could close his mouth and hold it shut. But at the very end of life, during those actively dying phases, people can't. They're fully unconscious and their mouths will almost always be hanging open and their eyes will even be open, but they won't be making eye contact. So like their eyes are open, their mouths are open, but no one's really home. But they're still not technically dead yet because they're in that actively dying phase. Again, something I like to educate about, because when people see it, they're like, ugh, they don't like how it looks. So they think their loved one's suffering, or why aren't they looking at me, but their eyes are open? This feels creepy. But it's not. It's the most natural thing.
I've had 1 or 2 guests talk about encountering somebody on the other side who had already died, and the person said that they left before the body physically died here. They were already gone. And they even like gave a date or something. It was pretty interesting. Do you agree with that? And what I mean by that is, do you think sometimes the being leaves before the body is dead?
Yes, not always though. Not always. And this part is always, this part is always hard for me to talk about because it's like, I know I really don't know, because none of us do. But I do feel like sometimes you can feel the energy in the room, like the person is still there during the actively dying phase. And sometimes it feels like they are not there. I don't know why one happens or the other, but it does feel differently. And I do actually try to educate families about that without getting too spiritual, because it's just not my place as a hospice nurse. But I do think sometimes it might be a little easier to see what you're seeing with your loved one as far as what their body is doing, if you just look at it as their body, not really them. This is just their body shutting down, going through the process of dying, but their spirit, their essence is gone. And yes, so I do agree with that. But I do think not everyone does that, but I don't know why.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe some people, the body's just too damaged and they're just out of there. They're gone. And you may think they're suffering while they're laying in bed, or they appear to be suffering, but they've left.
Yeah. Some bodies really do feel like empty vessels. Not all of them. Sometimes there's still like an essence there, and sometimes it really does just feel like, oh, this is just like a body hanging up, just slowly shutting down eventually. It's very interesting. I kind of like the most powerful part of my job, I think, is really being with a family and the person dying during the actively dying phase. Like usually on the day they're dying, you can tell because by the way they're breathing that they're going to probably die that day. It's a very special moment. It can be, of course, it's going to be really sad. Like my grief is removed because I'm not their loved one. I'm the nurse. So it's easier for me to see it and feel it. But that's what I want other people to understand is that like, if you could kind of decrease the fear by having knowledge about what's going on, you can really see the moment for what it is, which to me feels very sacred, a very sacred moment to be able to be with someone when they take their last breath.
So are you saying that you wish everybody would be educated on the death process?
Yes, everybody, including other healthcare workers, to understand what's going on. Because I think once you can understand what's going on, it doesn't feel as emergent or as panicky. And then you can be in that presence, like I was talking about, like that feeling that I've gotten ever since I've been a little girl of like what home is or what the afterlife is. I feel like you can feel it and sense it in those moments. But you have to be present and you have to understand what's happening to really be able to sense that. And it's really beautiful. Like I always say, when I watch a baby being born, which I haven't seen many, but the ones I have, I like weep because you can't help not, I don't know why, but it just this feeling of like, wow, all of a sudden now there's this new human that's in the room now. This is insane. I weep tears of joy and even if I don't know the baby or the family, that is kind of how it feels when someone takes their last breath. There's still sorrow, like there's deep sorrow, but it's a similar feeling. It's a similar feeling.
I don't know if you counsel the patients or not, but if you do, when you have a patient that's fearing death, what do you do?
Yeah, it's not completely my position, so I never like try to counsel them, but sometimes just being there, they will start talking to you, especially if you're educating about like how much time they may have or what to expect. From what I found is many people will say stuff like, I'm afraid to die, or I don't want to die. And that used to, when I was a new hospice nurse, that used to kind of freak me out. Because of course you want to say something like you want to be instantly comforting. No, don't fear death, or like, don't be afraid. But really what I have found is telling them how normal they are. That's the first thing I always do. I always say, like, just so you know, you were so normal. Like so many people say this to me. So many people feel this way. It's so normal to fear the unknown. And what I can tell you is anyone who's willing to say those things, because that's like a really scary thing and vulnerable thing to admit, because you want to avoid, I feel like most people want to avoid the thing they fear. Let's not say it. Let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about the elephant in the room. But the ones that do, that almost like all they have to do is admit it. And that almost loosens the grip enough that they can kind of start the process into acceptance. It just naturally starts happening. So that's really the first thing I say. I don't really try to make it better. I just say, hey, the fact that you even said that to me, the fact that you're saying you're afraid of death, or you don't want to die, or you're angry, like that's enough to really kind of get the ball rolling, so you can live better and die better. And the best thing I'd say is just keep being honest, keep talking about it, keep saying things you need to say. And that seems to be enough. You don't have to really do much.
Have you ever had a case where the person entered hospice and then got well and went back to live their life?
Yes.
Really?
All the time, but there's a caveat. So I've never had someone enter hospice, get well, and then never come back. There are specific diseases. So there's like the acute diseases that are usually cancer, where you come on and you will die within 6 months. Then there's what I would call like chronically terminal, meaning like Alzheimer's, dementia, COPD, which is a lung disease, CHF, which is a heart disease, where the decline can happen more like a stairway. So you have like episodes of being really bad or really sick. And then, so they put you on hospice. and they think maybe this is it. Maybe this is the end of this disease, right? But then for whatever reason, you start getting a little better and kind of crawling up that hill, and then you plateau out again. And when you plateau out again, you're not where you used to be, but you're still better than where you were. So it's like, then you end up coming off hospice, and then you'll live off hospice for, let's say, 3 months, 6 months, and then something else happens again, a fall or an infection or an exacerbation of your disease. Then you go downhill again, and then you'll go back on hospice. And it's kind of like this wave, this roller coaster that you kind of ride. So you usually come back on, but definitely people can go off hospice.
After doing this job for so long and seeing the different causes of death, what changes in your life have you made personally to be healthier?
Well, I already was healthy in the sense of I don't drink and smoke. Drinking and smoking are bad. Don't drink and smoke. The one change I've made recently is exercise. So I think exercise is really important. It might not stop you from getting types of cancer. Sometimes you can't help it, but aging, you will age better if you are more active. So that's one thing I try to do. I still don't have my diet on point. I think diet really helps too, but I eat whatever I want. So I feel like otherwise I live a pretty healthy lifestyle. So the main things that I see that have like taught me how to live differently on hospice would be emotionally. So I really try to embrace the fact that like I am dying and knowing that to help me better live. Because that is what a hospice has taught me. It also has taught me to be honest, live an honest lifestyle, not in the sense of like, don't lie, because I feel like a lot of us already know that. It's more of like a be honest with how you feel, be honest with others, say things honestly. If you're afraid of something, say it anyway. Because all of my patients on hospice that have done that really do live better, and they really do die better. If you, I hate to say this because I think a lot of people are like this, including me, but like you live how you die how you live. So if you're like super controlling and neurotic, you're going to have a hard time because like you lose a lot of control at the end of life. You don't have control over anything. And people who cannot let go of that have a really hard time. So I've really worked on trying to be more accepting of what is in my day-to-day life, because I know eventually I'm going to need to really rely on other people. And that's really hard for some people.
What about hearing people's regrets? Have those helped you change your life in any way?
Yes. These are great questions, Jeff.
Thanks.
So most people's regrets are working too much. That's the main one. I work too much. I work too much. I didn't like live my life when I should have been living my life. And I really have not, I get it. Not everyone feels like they have that chance to do that, but I really do try to not make my work my life because of that. And then also, like I said, again, the being honest thing about two other people around me, because it's either the two things that people always say is I work too much and I didn't tell my friends and family how much they meant to me. Oh, another thing is how much they appreciate their health, like how they didn't appreciate their health. So every night I do a gratitude list about things I'm grateful for. And every single night on my gratitude list is my health, because we forget how lucky we are that our legs move for the most part. We can walk. We're not in pain for the most part. How much our body is really doing without us knowing it. When you get sick, that stuff changes and you're like, damn, I didn't realize how much I took for granted how nice it was to eat and not feel sick. So things like that, my patients have taught me, and I try to stay in gratitude every day. Just remembering how special it is that I don't have quote unquote anything wrong with my body, at least right now.
Can you give us some facts to help death seem less scary?
Yes. So I feel like I've touched on these a little bit. I'm going to keep saying this over and over again so people remember. Our bodies are built to die. What does that mean? So in general, like I said, so almost everyone at the end of life, if you're dying like what I would call a natural death on hospice, even though you're dying from something, you're still like allowing the natural progression to take over. Your body will start making you less hungry, making you less thirsty. So if your loved one is not eating and drinking and they're saying they're okay with that, let it be, because their body is helping them do that. It also will help you sleep more, like preserve your energy. So if the person doesn't want to get up, don't make them get up. As long as they're clean and safe and comfortable, they're good. Let their body do it. And then, like I said, because those things are happening, your body will eventually go into something called ketosis, which I think gets confused because there's a whole keto diet where your body can go into ketosis. This is different because you're not eating at all. So please separate those two for anyone listening. And when that happens, like I said, there's endorphins that are released that dull pain and make you sleepy and kind of feel good and almost euphoric. So that fact alone, the scientific fact of like how the body actually dies, to me is really comforting. Then on the other side, and this sounds a little, I hate saying the word woo-woo, but whatever, we'll say the word woo-woo. But it's a true fact at the end of life that most people will start seeing dead relatives, dead loved ones, dead pets. It's called visioning. This is not something that like I'm just saying. This is what anyone in working at end of life would tell you because we educate about it because it happens so much. So it usually happens around 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks before someone dies. They will have visions and either in dreams or actually physically see people who have died before them, their grandparents, their parents, their pets, children who have died, depending. It's always someone that they love that's comforting. And sometimes they send messages, it's not your time yet, but we're going to come get you. Don't worry, we'll take care of everything. Sometimes they are just chatting because it's like they haven't seen this loved one in a long time. To me, that was really comforting and really surprising as a hospice nurse because I wouldn't have really believed that. But you see it so often that it's like hard. You can't not believe it. I mean, I don't know why it's happening. I'm not saying it's real. I have no idea, but it happens so often that it's like you can't ignore it. So those are the two main things. There's like, for people who like the science stuff, there is scientifically, I think it's comforting that our bodies are built to do it. And then the other side that it's visioning is a thing, and it also happens globally and across cultures. So like many people everywhere around the world, this happens to.
I had a guest that was a children's hospice nurse, and he said the way it worked was that they would be in rooms with no door, and he would monitor like 3 patients at the same time. And a lot of times what would happen would be 1 would be asleep and 2 would be awake, and they both would start visioning at the same time, seeing the same thing, and they would be laughing and interacting with it. And
Wow.
he had them draw him pictures what they would look like. And they said it would be like some gray being.
Wow. It's so interesting because I wonder if children are just more open to it because I talked to some hospice nurses who say, the visioning thing has never happened. No one's ever said that to me or whatever, right? And I always wonder, like, oh, it's so interesting. And the reason why I think a lot of people don't think it happens is because a lot of adults don't tell anyone. And the reason why I see it all the time is because I actually educate the families. I bring out this booklet of things to look for, right? And then when I tell them, this is going to sound weird, but they may start actually seeing dead relatives and talk about visioning. 9 times out of 10, they've already done it. 9 times out of 10, when I say that to families and patients, they go, well, that's already been happening. And then the patient will be like, my parents already came to me. They told me it's not my time yet, but they're coming soon. So I think because I'm willing to kind of go there. I usually don't just straight up ask if they have it. I just educate about it. And usually when I do that, it makes everyone a little more comfortable to say what's going on. But it's interesting because with children, children are always so much more open. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. When you're with the grieving family, what are some of the things that you should say and should not say?
I think it kind of depends on who you are to the family. For me as the hospice nurse, I try to be that like steady person in the room because I think grief and death and can be really uncomfortable for many people, awkward and sad and overwhelming, and they don't know how to act, so everyone's a little like on edge. I try to be the person who is showing everybody just through my actions, through being calm and steady, that like I'm a safe person to talk about all things with. So sometimes I think the biggest thing I like to say more of like what not to do, because I just think it's important to not try to shut it down. Don't try to shut the grief down. Don't try to like get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to fix how people are feeling. If they have questions, I'm always open to it. Also, I say, if you have any questions, please let me know. As the hospice nurse, I'm usually doing things and kind of like getting things organized. But if you're not that, if you're just a person there, I think just being there, really, just being there and not feeling like you have to fix something. You can always say like, you can just straight up ask, how can I support you right now? Or I think really just being there, especially if it's like real fresh, if it just happened, just being there and not feeling like you have to change the situation or say anything like, at least they died at home. At least they lived for this long. At least you don't need to say anything about it. At least they're in heaven now. At least I would just don't say, if you're going to say that, just don't say anything.
Well, you have a new book, and congratulations to you for writing it and completing it, because that is a great accomplishment in itself. And
Thank you.
And that book's called Nothing to Fear, Demystifying Death to Live More Fully. How did this book happen finally?
Well, I got to tell you, I owe it all to TikTok is what it feels like. I started out on TikTok. I'm on all social media platforms now, but TikTok really was the starter of it all. And then I remember I had an article written that went really viral a couple of years ago from Newsweek. And then that started me into getting a book agent. And then the book agent helped me write a proposal. And then they pitched it to publishing companies. And then I got a book deal. And then it took almost 2 years to write the whole thing. And it's finally out now for pre-order and will be officially out in June. And it's just been a wild, wild ride that I just keep trying to let go of and see where it goes.
Well, this is just the beginning of your book tour, and you got to do it from home. Do you think that you'll ever, wind up on late night TV or anything like that?
Oh, we're hoping so. We're hoping so. That is the plan. And it just depends on if they care to hear me or not.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Right. Well, you said it's for pre-order. If someone wants to take a look and find out more about it, is it on Amazon or your website?
I would go to my website, hospicenursejulie.com, just because there you can see where everyone's selling it, because it is on Amazon, the places where everyone gets it, like Amazon or Barnes and Noble, but there's other places that I think might have like cheaper versions of it. That's why I always say, just go to hospicenursejulie.com and then you'll see everyone that's selling it. But in general, it doesn't matter where you get it, wherever you want to get it. And there is an Audible version too, which will be my voice if people don't like to read and want to listen.
Cool. Do you ever see yourself creating courses for the healthcare community?
I do. Again, this is what I'm trying to see where I want to go with this. Do I want to make classes? Do I want to make them I would rather do it for like everyday people versus the healthcare community, but that's a good idea though, too. I mean, I said before, I was a nurse in a different specialty and I didn't know the stuff I was saying. So it really could be for anybody, but we'll see. As of right now, I'm just focusing on the book and really my YouTube channel. I love YouTube as well. So I have a full like production thing going for YouTube, and I don't know, we'll see where we go.
That's great.
That's how I've been doing this whole thing, and it's been working out. So
I don't know if you're still practicing, but I think you're going to get so busy that you won't have time for it anymore.
I know. Yeah, I still am. I am, but I'm not full time. but I'm not full-time. But I wasn't full-time before. I really have taken the advice of my dying patients when they said, like, don't work your life away. So I do kind of half and half. We'll see.
That's smart.
I actually love my job, so I would want to do it at least a little bit because I love it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you're working on that you want us to know about?
No, not really. Just my social media channels. I mean, I want other people to know that I love my YouTube channel, so that I'm on YouTube and social media. Yeah, that's really it.
Well, if people want to ask you questions, are you open to that? And if so, should they just leave them as comments on your YouTube videos?
Yeah, I would say so. On YouTube, I go live at 5 every Wednesday, Pacific Standard Time. Best way to do that would be then go to my live at 5 on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube. And I would ask your questions there. You can still ask in the comments. And if I catch it, that's great. But that's the thing, is like I get so many comments, I don't always catch it. So that's what I would do. I would go to YouTube live at 5 on every Wednesday and ask your questions there.
That's great. Well, before we finish up.
That's great. Good job, Jeff. Way to ask that question.
But one last one.
Okay.
Don't go until you leave us with one last positive message.
Contemplating your own mortality, as not positive as that sounds, will actually, I can promise you, will actually help you live better, which will in turn help you die better.
Julie,
did I actually say something like that?
No, I thought it was great. That was great.
Yeah.
It was great. Julie, thank you again for being my guest. I wish you massive success with your book and everything else that you're doing.
Thanks, Jeff. You too. You've always been so great. Thanks for being so supportive.
My pleasure. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.